Well, thank you, Mr. Wayne McCullough. Thank you for being here. TheBoxingBar.com. Thank you for being on here, and welcome.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And let's go ahead and start with the first question I ask everybody. Day one, where were you born and raised?
I was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, on July 7th, 1970. So my date of birth is 7/7/70.
And what was it like being born and raised there in Ireland?
In Belfast, where I come from, it's always been well known for, religious divides, Protestant, Catholic, fighting, but it never really was about religion. Boxing's always been a cross-community thing, and I never had any problem with that, but you had bombs going off, you had British soldiers walking the streets, pointing their guns at you, and you got searched every time into a store, like a clothes store, a grocery store, you got searched with a metal detector, so that was normal life for me growing up. And, when you live there, it was no different. But when I came here and you didn't get searched, I was like, this is weird.
Growing up, what were you like?
I was pretty shy, but I did all sports. I actually wanted to be a soccer player. I played soccer in high school, all through middle school. And I played rugby. I did cross-country running as well. I loved that as well. But boxing was the only thing that I really, the one-on-one aspect of it, I started when I was about 7 years old. And I just loved the fact of you were in control and you in control of your destiny. And I stuck with boxing.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters, and 2 younger sisters. And so I was the only one who didn't have anybody to really play with. My 2 older brothers are like a year apart. My 2 older sisters are about a year apart. And my younger sisters are close in age as well. So my older brothers boxed. One boxed professionally, and one was an amateur. And then one got a detached retina in his eye, and the other one just gave it up. So I came from a sort of boxing background.
What was your relationship like with your parents?
Yeah, I had a type. My mom passed away about 4 years ago. New Year's Eve, actually, 4 years ago. From lung cancer from smoking. She died when she was just 60 years old, so she was pretty young. But I was close to my mom, out of everybody, I was close to my mom.
What were you like as a student in school growing up? Were you a good student?
Well, in high school, I didn't mind school. I actually liked school, which is, a lot of people say they didn't like school, but I did. I liked school. I liked doing, afterwards we did a soccer practice, we did a cross-country practice, and as soon as that was over, I'd go home and get a bite to eat and then go to the boxing gym. So my whole day was, I was here at school and then going from other sports right to the boxing gym. So I didn't mind school. I liked it. I did pretty well in school. And, maybe if I look back, I might have stayed on and went to college, but I wanted to leave school and go to be a boxer.
What was your best subject in school?
I actually like doing math. I probably work well in the boxing business, calculating the figures. I'm good with my, adding things up, taking things away, or my, all the problems you have to do in math, and I like doing that. And I say in the boxing business, it's helped a lot.
Did you have a lot of friends growing up when you were a kid?
No, growing up in my neighborhood, there was a bunch of us. We're all probably, some guys are maybe a year or 2 older, some guys a couple of years younger. But there was always we had a gang. It wasn't like a gang who were doing any violence or anything. We just hung about with each other. We all went to the gym together. But I was the only one who actually stayed in the gym. A lot of my friends are, it's about all the killings over there and stuff. They're involved in that, and they're either locked up or dead. And boxing sort of kept me away from all that and saved my life. But I'm still in touch with some of my friends through Twitter or Facebook. So the world's a smaller place with the internet.
Did you get in a whole lot of fights because you were or hung around with people that were in gangs or people involved in that? Did you get in a lot of street fights back then?
Not really. I actually, because I boxed from I was about 7 years old, people had respect for me, and they didn't really want to pick on me because they knew I could handle myself. And even in high school, there were a lot of bullies in school who they would bully some of the guys, and I would walk over to the bully and say, you know what, leave him alone, and they would leave him alone. So I would actually help the bullies not get bullied anymore. And everybody had respect for me, so they didn't try to push a button and try to go after me. So I think boxing sort of kept me out of trouble because nobody wanted to test to see if they were better than me. And if I did get into a fight, it only lasted about 2 seconds anyway.
What were some of the first memories that you remember about watching boxing on TV as a kid?
I went to the gym as my 2 brothers went, and it was something to do back then. But back in Belfast, and back in the day, you only had 3 TV channels. So it was like BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. And every Tuesday night they had sports night, which is a local. You either watch soccer or they had a fight on every week. And then on Wednesday night they had maybe another fight on. So you get to see the fights around the world. You get to see Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, guys like that, and Muhammad Ali fights back in the day. Actually back in, I think it was like 1979 or 1980 when I think Muhammad Ali fought Larry Holmes. We got to see that as a kid, and it was like you waited all day long just to watch the fight because you only had 3 channels, I'd say, and it was just exciting to watch. And I got a lot of little magazines as well, like the Boxing News magazine in Britain. It's a weekly boxing newspaper, and it kept you informed of all the fights from around the world. And I like reading about them and say watching the fights.
The Irish have a long history in boxing. I mean, from back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and even to now. How did that play a part, or do you remember anything, or do you know anything about the history of Irish boxing in general?
Yeah, well, go back to Jimmy McLaren and guys like that who lived pretty close to where I came from. Well, he immigrated to America, of course, but they came from Runabout. Steve Cowles he's from Dublin. You got Brian McWigan, he's from Clones. You've got Dave Boyle McCauley, a former champion. He's from Larne, which is about 10 miles from Belfast. You get the likes of Eamon Loughran, who actually was on the Junior Olympic team with me. He was actually a WBO welterweight champion back in the day. He's not that. He's the same age as me, but he was a champion. He never got recognition. And you got guys like that who I looked up to as a kid, and became friendly with the likes of Steve Cowles and stuff. So if they go back to Jimmy McLaren, that's a long time ago. Guys like that, you've got a lot of good fighters back in the day. Johnny Caldwell won a world championship. He's passed away. And Renty Monaghan back in the 50s, he was a former champion as well. So the history of Irish boxing goes way back. And and then of course you've got the ones who emigrated to America. And there's a lot of Irish-born fighters who lived in America and always known as a fighting Irish. We maybe not didn't have the best skills in the world, but we always had the heart.
And I think a lot of those people were underrated too. A lot of those particular boxers were underrated because they didn't make mainstream in America, unfortunately. But a lot of those people should be in the Hall of Fame.
They should be. I think the only guy in there is Brian McWigan. He got inducted about 4 or 5 years ago, but he won a WBA belt and 2 defenses, and that was it. He never went on to fight for any more world championships or anything like that. So, if I don't fight within the next 2 years, I'm eligible to be in the Hall of Fame in 2014. So I'm not being big head or anything, but I've did more than any Irish fighter has done. I was the first Irish fighter to fight for 3 world championships, and of course I didn't win them, but I should have got maybe 2 of them. And I fought actually for 6 world championships. And I'm actually the only Irish or British fighter to go to Japan and win a world championship, which was a WBC belt. And I'm the first Irish-born fighter to win a WBC belt. So if I don't get into the Hall of Fame in the next 3 years, then there's a lot of politics involved, believe me.
And not only that, I think if you don't make any boxing Hall of Fame, I think it's going to be an unjust, and I'm going to look at the Boxing Hall of Fame lower than it should be because you should be involved in that, or you should be a part of that. I got inducted. So I got inducted last year into the WBC Legends of Boxing Museum, which was good because you have to be retired 5 years, and I was only in the ring 2.5. So at least they wanted me in there after 2.5 years out of the ring. So the WBC have always respected me, and I hope that Kenneth Stoda, I talked to the Ed Brookley last week at the WBC convention, and he says, I should be in. I will be in there. So, but what's said and what's done, 2 different things. The politics of the sport. And if I didn't get in there in 2014, I'm eligible to be inducted. 2013 will be the vote to be inducted in 2014. So if I don't get in, I'd be disappointed. But as I say, there's a lot of politics, and I would love to be in the Kenneth Stoda. I think everybody will agree with that, and I think everybody does believe there's a lot of politics involved in all that. Let me ask you another question, Wayne. There's a lot of people that, me being a Mexican American, let's say, there's a lot of Mexican fans that don't like Mexican American boxers or people in general. Is it the same with the Irish people born in Ireland and all these people that are claiming to be Irish that are born here in the United States? Do you guys see them the same as maybe Mexican fans see Mexican American fans, that they're not 100% Mexican because they're born here?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think you can probably point the finger to Oscar De La Hoya because he won a gold medal for the USA, of course, and then all of a sudden when he turned pro, he's trying to get the Mexican fans, but maybe it's a PR stunt, maybe it's not. I don't know his parents were Mexican, but some people try to ride on the wave of trying to make money, but I think Oscar's a legitimate guy who loves his Mexican heritage. You've got the likes of Mickey Ward, who had he's an American Irish, and he was proud of his Irish roots. And the funny thing, when Mickey Ward in the movie, even he fought a guy called Shane Erie from England. Well, Shane Erie's actually 100% Irish. He was born in Ireland, so he's probably more Irish than Mickey Ward was that night, but they made it out that Mickey Ward was more Irish than he was. I think anybody, like even Mexican people who are proud of their heritage, whether they're American Irish or American Mexican or Mexican American, or the same for Irish people, Irish American or American Irish, you know, if they're proud of their roots, you know, you got to give them credit for that. You know, Oscar De La Hoya, give him credit for wanting to be part of his Mexican roots. So I think there's no shame in that. I think some people might point the finger and say certain things, but I think if you're proud of where you came from and you're born in a different country, then everybody should honor that.
Oscar De La Hoya, like you said, or your example of Oscar De La Hoya, yes, when he fought, let's say Julio Cesar Chavez,
yeah,
to be non-Mexican because, you know, Julio Cesar Chavez was totally Mexican. Oscar was born here in the United States. Then you brought up Mickey Ward, which was exactly what I say. Is he was considered to be, or his name is Irish Mickey Ward, but he was born here. So I always wondered what your thoughts of Mickey Ward would have been, or even Jerry Cooney. Jerry Cooney back in the early '80s when he fought Larry Holmes. You know, he was considered to be the Irish Jerry Cooney because he was considered to be a white fighter against a black fighter, and race in a way it plays like a part, whether we like it or not. It kind of does play a part.
No, I think, you know, as I said, Oscar De La Hoya, for him to actually say he's from Mexican heritage, I think, you know what, a lot of credit has to go to him for doing that. And with Jerry Cooney and Mickey Ward, I believe, you know, they've got Irish, you know, parents or grandparents. I know that because I talked to Jerry Cooney last week, so I know he's Irish because he told me exactly where he was from in Northern Ireland. And believe me, if you weren't a real Irishman, you wouldn't know where that part of the world, where that city was that he said he was from. He's definitely Irish. Mickey Ward, I've talked to him over the years, and he's got the Irish roots too. They're proud of the Irish roots. They're proud to be American as well. It's like my daughter. My daughter Winona was born in America, so with her, she's going to have her roots, Irish roots. You know, she's always going to be proud of that. So I give anybody credit who's proud of their Mexican roots, their Irish roots, or whatever roots they have. If they take credit for them, you know what? We should all appreciate and give them applause for that.
Awesome to hear that from you because I think a lot of people wanted to hear that. I live in Southern California. A lot of people from here are Mexican American. A lot of people from here, or a lot of people from Mexico, don't see us as real Mexicans, and it's good to hear from you what you think of Irish Mickey Ward or boxers before or after them, even though they're born here in the United States.
Yeah.
A real Irish person sees them as.
Well, I think most people, you know, Mexicans, Irish. America's full of Irish people. America's full of Mexican people. I think we all come to America for a better life for our kids. So we're not going to forget our heritage. You know, the Mexicans celebrate their Mexican holidays, and the Irish celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So if we forgot about our roots, we wouldn't celebrate in America our Mexican holiday or our Irish holidays. It's like the old U2 song, you know, Irish, Italian, Jews, and Hispanics.
And the Irish do have a place in history, along with the Italians back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. From then on, up until you, pretty much.
That's why the Irish and the Mexicans, they're always joined. You know, there's a movie out there called One Man's Hero. That's when the Irish came over and they fought for Mexico against America back in the 1800s. It's a true story. And I know they've got statues of Irish people in Mexico City, of Irish soldiers there in Mexico City. There's statues of Irish soldiers in Mexico City. Look at Sal Alvarez, he's definitely Irish. So there's a lot of Irish in Mexico, like Irish born who emigrated there in the 1800s and mixed in with the Mexican people and made Mexican Irish babies.
And you yourself, how did you get into boxing? When was the first time you went into a boxing gym, and what was that like?
Around about 7 years old, and I just went to the gym, as I say, with my two older brothers. And one of my brothers, he came back from a fight one night and he had this little trophy, and I thought it was just amazing that he had a trophy. And I just wanted to go to the gym, and the first thing I did at the gym for the first 6 months was I jumped rope at the back of the gym and I watched all the fighters. And back then, our gym had professional fighters and everything, British champions, European champions. And actually, Barry McGuigan actually trained in our gym back in the day, and a guy called Davy Larmer who became a British flyweight champion. So I was looking at these guys, I was watching every day and just learning. I was learning different things by just watching. And then when I was I think I just turned about 8 years old, I had my first fight, but I'd already been in the gym like 6 months, and I fought my first fight against a guy who had like 50 fights, and I knocked him out in the second round. So by just watching other fighters train and taking in what they were learning me, I became a better fighter just by watching.
What do you remember about that time, the first time you went in there to spar or fight for the first time? Was it pretty natural to you, or did you have to kind of work into it?
Just as you say there, it was natural. It's funny because I always say to my wife, I don't remember being taught how to hold my hands up or throw a jab or throw a 1-2. By standing at the back of the gym, jumping rope, and watching other fighters, it's like watching a seminar of somebody and picking things up. By watching these other guys for like 6 months, it became natural to me. So, as I say, I did other sports, but boxing was the one thing that it was just, I'm not saying it was easy, and it's not easy, but because I watched and studied it for the first 6 months, when I first put the gloves on to spar, it was easier for me. Just came natural.
And at what point did you decide to start your amateur career where you're actually racking up wins or going towards your amateur career? At what point did you decide to go ahead and do that?
Well, I say by the time I was about 12 years old, I probably had 100 fights. I won my first championship when I was 11. It was a boys club championship, and then from then on, when I was 14, I started winning. From 14 until I turned pro at 22, I won the national championships every year. Went from juvenile, youth, junior, then senior, and then went to the Olympics twice and got a silver medal. And when I was about 15 years old, is when I knew at 15 years old I wanted to be a professional fighter. I knew then boxing was my life, and I wanted to be a professional fighter and make a living out of boxing. And my goal as a 15-year-old was to become a world champion. And I worked hard from then, and went on to get the Olympic medal, and then come to America and became world champion.
What was your amateur record before you went on to the Olympics?
For my amateur record, I had 319 amateur fights, and I just lost 11 fights out of 319. So it was 308 and 11 losses with over 100 knockouts.
Wow, when do you see something like that nowadays?
Well, I was not going to say I had over 100 knockouts, and right before I went to the Olympics, I had 12 straight knockouts in a row against international competition, like against Canada, Cuba, Scotland, all different parts of the world. I knocked out 12 guys straight. So that was my best knockout, straight knockouts, 12 in a row.
And how important do you, in your opinion, feel it is to have an extensive amateur career? Do you think that's important to do that, or do you think it all depends on the individual and what their style is?
No, I really think it depends on the individual. When I look back, I had 10 times more than most people have, but I think if you had maybe 50 fights, or between 30 and 50 fights is probably enough, to learn your trade. But not a lot of guys start at 7 years old. Most guys maybe start when they're 15, 16. So I think the 7 years I'd started before most people do. That's why I had so many fights, because before I was 12, I probably had 100 fights. So, by the time I was 15, maybe had 160, 170 fights. So most guys don't start, they're maybe 15, 16, and they turn pro when they're 21, 22. So I would say, if you had 40 or 50 fights, it's probably enough. But I say back in Ireland, and back when I was a kid, we would fight every week. And when you went to championship fights, like the juniors, the youth, you could maybe fight 3 or 4 times in 1 week. So and even back in the day, you fought twice in 1 day. So there used to be a lot of fighters around, and now I think nowadays there's not as many boxers as there was back 20 years ago.
What year were you in the Olympics for Ireland?
I actually qualified as a 17-year-old for the 88 Olympics in Seoul, Korea, and they weren't going to send me because I was too young. But as I say, I had the best record out of the national team, and they put me in with the national champion twice, and I knocked them out twice. So that was as a light flyweight. So they had no choice but to send me, and I went out there and I fought. I got to the final 16. Back then it was open competition, so nowadays they cut it down to 32 in each weight class. But back when I went to my first Olympics, which when Roy Jones fought, there was like 70 fighters at my weight class. So to get to the final 16 as a 17-year-old was a big accomplishment for me. And then when I went, I got to carry the flag and to do it in the ceremony in the 88 Olympics. And then 92 is when I got the silver medal when I just turned 22 in Barcelona.
Well, that's right. Roy Jones was from 88. I think Riddick Bowe's from 88. And
yep, I remember them guys. Well, they were all older than me. I was just a kid, as I say. And, back then, actually, my weight class back then was Michael Carbajal. He got the silver medal that year. He was in my weight class at light flyweight. So I had a lot of good fighters there. And then, in 92, I was a bantamweight, and I was I just turned 22, and I went the whole way to the final and got beat by Joel Casimiro in the final.
Michael Carbajal is one of my favorite fighters.
I love Michael Carbajal.
Did you ever box him?
No, I didn't. When I look back at the Olympics back then, if I'd have won my next fight, I would have fought him in the semi-finals of the Olympics in '88. But I was a Michael Carbajal fan when he turned pro, because he turned pro right after the Olympics, and I stayed amateur for 4 more years. So the 4 years I was amateur, I watched his fights with Chiquita Gonzalez, who I got to meet last week. With a hell of a fighter as well. They had great fights together. I was a Michael Carbajal fan, and they brought recognition to the small guys in boxing.
Not only that, to that weight class too. I think they had Fight of the Year, and a lot of people back then, they only paid attention to the heavier weights.
I think Michael Carbajal and Chiquita Gonzalez were the first little guys to get $1 million payday.
That's correct. I didn't think of that till now, but you're correct.
Because they fought Fight of the Year. You know what I mean? Back then, so they deserved it.
I believe Carbajal beat him in the 7th or 8th round in the first fight, and then they went to decision in the second fight.
Second fight, that's right.
And so, at what point did you decide to turn pro after your amateur career? When did you decide to go ahead and say, you know what, it's time to go pro, and I'm going to go all out and do this?
Well, after the Olympics in '88, when you go to the Olympic Games, it's like the highlight of your career. And although I didn't get a medal in '88, I was just a kid. I just barely turned. I was 17, turned 18. And I thought I was a man, you know what I mean? I weighed 105 pounds, soaking wet. I wasn't fully grown. I was about 5'3". And then when I took between 18 and 22, I wanted to go pro, but my amateur coach said, "Why don't you wait till you're fully grown, wait till you develop and be a man?" And I decided to wait, and I actually I grew about 4 more inches. I put on like 14, 15 pounds, and I went along and I won. In 1990, I went to the British Commonwealth Games and won a gold medal in Auckland, New Zealand. And then in 1990, I moved up the bantamweight, and I won a World Cup bronze medal in Bombay, India. So when I went to the Olympics in '92, I was actually rated number 3 in the world. So I offered to turn pro, and I waited till the Olympics. I knew after the Olympics I was turning pro no matter what. And from 1990 till 1992, the Irish Olympic team I was the first ever amateur fighter to be paid to stay amateur. So they paid me for 2 years to stay amateur until the Olympics, which helped me to train properly 100% and buy my gloves and buy my runners and stuff. So that helped me, and then I turned pro after the Olympics in '92.
Your first fight. What do you remember about that day? The first time that you got to the arena, you were getting ready to go to your first fight, going through the drapes at night. What do you remember about that day?
It was tough, I fought in the Olympics, and the final was August of '92, and in the semi-final of my Olympics, I got my cheekbone cracked in 3 places, and a busted nerve down the left side of my cheek, which to this day I still don't have any feeling, just below my nose and the left side of my face. So I still fought the final against Casimiro. I fought a close fight, lost a close decision, but I couldn't fight for 6 months after that because my cheekbone had to replace itself and get better. So my first pro fight was like having my first fight all over again. I was so nervous. I flew from Belfast, Northern Ireland to Los Angeles. My first fight was in Reseda Country Club in Reseda, California. And I was on national TV. I was on USA Tuesday Night Fights. And I was so nervous that I was almost hyperventilating before the bell rang. And once the bell rang, I went out there and I stopped the guy in the 4th round. And I was relieved. Believe me, I was really relieved. I flew to LA on a Saturday night and fought on a Tuesday night. Like I had took me about 20 hours to get here. And I was only, 22-year-old kid. But the arena was actually full of Irish people. There's lots of Irish in California. So that was a good night. It was on. Dan Goosen was the promoter, and he actually gave me $1,000 extra because we sold out the arena.
The transition from amateur to pro, did you feel better without the headgear and the lighter glove, or the lighter gloves, so your hands could fly better, or did it hurt more because they had lighter gloves and the punches hurt a lot more for you too?
Well, it suited me because the guy hits you harder, but it means you can hit him harder as well. But the fact is, I didn't like wearing the headgear. I didn't like the headgears at all. I think the headgear actually restricts you from seeing like a left hook or a right hook. Back in Ireland, it's from a 15, 16-year-old kid. My brother was a professional fighter, so he went down to spar in a gym in Ireland, along with like Dave McCauley, who was a world champion boxer. A guy called, actually Fidel Bassa, who beat Dave McCauley from Colombia. was in Belfast for the fight, and he wanted me to spar with him. So I've been sparring with professional fighters since I was 15. A guy called Paul Hodgkinson, who won the WBC featherweight belt. He's from Liverpool. He trained in Belfast. So I got to spar with them guys when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. And that's why I love professional boxing so much, because I just like wearing no headgears or anything like that. So when I turned pro and I get in there, it just felt like I was home. I felt like this is for me. And I love the smaller gloves and no headgear.
A lot of your amateur fights, like you said, ended up in knockouts. Were you always heavy-handed like that? And then all of your, let's say your first 10, 12 boxing fights, a lot of them, most of them early knockouts.
Yeah.
Was that natural to you to be heavy-handed, or did you kind of have to work into that?
No, I learned, there's 12 and there was 11 knockouts, and the one guy who went the distance was my third fight, which is actually, I was supposed to fight at 118. If you look at the record, it says I weighed 122, which I did the night of the fight, but I weighed in at 118 the morning of the fight, and my opponent pulled out. So they brought another guy in who was like the California Golden Gloves champion. He was making his pro debut, but he weighed 125. But my official weight in the morning of the weigh-in was 118. But they weighed me right before I got into the ring, and I weighed 122. So I actually fought a featherweight, and I weighed bantamweight. So that's why I probably didn't stop him. But it's not that I was heavy-handed. I hit hard enough, but I threw a lot of punches. Punches came in punches and bunches, and over 100 punches around, and the guys didn't know what was coming at them. But my late trainer, Eddie Fudge, when I was in the gym every day, he got me to sit down more on my punches. Instead of just wasting shots, he got me to sit down and dig the shots into the body and the head. And my good friend Mike McCallum, the body snatcher, 3-10 world champion, he showed me how to throw the left hook to the body. And I knocked out of them 11 knockouts in 12 fights. I knocked out about 3 or 4 guys with body shots. So I think it was more the accumulation of shots and the one punch knockout part.
And that's a perfect guy to learn from too. Mike McCallum, he was a body snatcher.
Oh, great body puncher.
Yeah, he was the perfect body snatcher, and I'm sure that was a perfect person to learn from. Victor Rabinellis, I remember. I remember you fighting him. I think that was the first time I ever seen you fight. It was for the NABF title, the heavyweight title. What do you remember about that fight?
Well, it was the NABF WBC elimination fight. He was the former world champion and number 1 in the world. I was number 10 in the world or something. I just won the NABF belt that year, and I had to fight. Back in the day, you had to fight people to get to the belt. You didn't get a straight shot at the belt. And Victor Rabinellis, I know he had like 50 fights, and it was my 13th fight. And he had fought more championship fights than I had fights. So I knew it was going to be tough. The guy was awkward. He hit pretty hard. And it was hard to hit. He had this weird style. He had long reach. And, going into the fight, we knew we could beat him, but we knew it was going to be tough. And I won over 12 rounds. But it was a fight that woke me up. It was a type of fight that I knew then I could really be a world champion, because getting past him was a test that I think any young kid needs. If you can get past your first test, you're going to become a world champion. It was the first fight out of my first 13 fights that I lost a round. And my first 12 fights, I didn't lose 1 round.
Not only that, there was a lot of dirty punching, and there was a lot of low blow penalties.
Well, he had long arms, they say, and he hit me low a lot of times. But he's the only guy to this day, that actually had me out on my feet. He hit me a right hand uppercut hook or whatever it was in the 9th round, I think it was. And I didn't see the punch coming, but he didn't know I was hurt. I had my hands up. I was moving around, but for it seemed like 10 seconds. I thought I was watching television with my wife in the hotel room. And then when I came around, I could actually see 3 Rabinellis in front of me. But he didn't know I was hurt. And I nodded to him as if to say, okay, you hit me, but I'm still standing here. But it's the first and only time out of my whole career that I was out on my feet. And I think it was down to inexperience. I didn't have the experience he had. And he hit me with shots that I never hit before.
Beat him by a unanimous decision. You go on and fight a few other fights. You win those. You fight Johnny Breedle. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, after Rabinellis, I was number 1 contender, and they made me wait for over like 13 months. I had a few fights. I fought a few fights. Right after that fight, I had probably my easiest fight in September. I needed an easy fight. I knocked a guy in 2 rounds. That was 94. Then I fought Fabrice Benishu, who was a former world champion. I fought him in Dublin, Ireland. He took me the whole 12 rounds, but I probably won every single round. And then the next year, I won the world championship. My first defense against Gianni Bardal, who was It was the runner type. His brother fought Oscar De La Hoya.
Yes, Jimmy Friedel.
Yeah, he couldn't. The guy couldn't burst the balloon with his punching power. He ran and he ran and he ran and he ran. And he's the only guy, really, believe me. He disrespected me. He actually ripped my poster up in the press conference in my home city of Belfast, right in front of me. And I never had disrespect for anybody, but he's the only guy that I really wanted to hurt badly. He really was. And in the fight, he just ran away and he ran away. And we had a Mexican referee, and he told him about 4 times, you better start fighting. He was so negative, and I hit him about 10 shots, and the referee stopped it. But you know what? I didn't want it to be stopped. I wanted to knock the guy out cold. I really did. I wanted to knock him out so bad. And after the fight was over, he said to me, he just wanted to go the distance. And I'm thinking, this is the championship of the world. You go in there and try to win, whether you get knocked out or what. And he didn't want to win. But it was the type of guy. He went on to fight Paulie Ayala, and he had a close fight, and then he went on to become actually WBA. He was world champion before I fought him, but afterwards he won a WBA belt, and he retired and gave up his belt. So he was a decent fighter. Hard to hit, believe me, really hard to hit.
And now I'm gonna yell at you a little bit, Wayne. You beat my guy Daniel Zaragoza. And, I'm gonna yell at you about that a little.
I love Daniel. Daniel's my good friend. Daniel. Last week we were sitting at the dinner table together, and I have respect for the guy. Hall of Famer. We got Fight of the Year for that fight. The guy's a legend. To me, I said to him last week, him and his wife, you're a legend to me. You're a legend. I watched Daniel Zaragoza long before I came to America because he's like 13 years older than me. You know what I mean? So he's a legend, and just to be with him last week, it's just it's fantastic. And even the actual gloves I fought him in that I wore in the fight, I got him to sign them, and I signed them as well. So I get gloves I fought Zaragoza on, are signed by both. They got the gloves I fought Morales in, are signed by both. Hamed, the gloves are signed by both of us, and the gloves I wore against Larius are signed by both of us. So any collectors out there would probably kill for these gloves, believe me.
What do you remember about that fight? Was he a pretty tough competitor?
No, I thought he was a great guy. I thought I won the fight clearly, you know what I mean? But the guy was tough guy. He's a good counter puncher, awkward, and even give him credit. After he fought me, he fought Morales, and he was actually beating Morales until he could stop with a body shot. So the guy, some guys, he was like a Bernard Hopkins of today. He was 39 years old, but you know what? Hopkins is 46, and he can still compete at the world level. Zaragoza at 39 can still compete at the world level, and the guy's just a legend to me. The guy I looked up to even before I came here.
And that's very classy of you to say that. And
good,
Danielle, he's a great fighter, and you guys both did very well in that fight.
And make great friends. You know what? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I make great friends with Zaragoza, Morales, Larius. I stepped beside Larius last week when we were sitting down watching my daughter sing, and it's the first time I've seen him since he fought. And you know what? He was so happy to see me, and I was so happy to see him. And he was hugging me, and we said, "Come get pictures together." We're like friends for life. You know what I mean? Boxing's that type of sport that you meet people in the ring and you beat the head of each other, and then all of a sudden the respect you have, two fighters have with each other, is respect that nobody's going to have as like two friends outside. You just have that respect for life.
And I've even heard that being Mexican American myself and knowing Spanish, I've heard Eric Morales himself in interviews say that you were a lot better fighter than Barrera was, and they fought 3 times. But
he
thought that highly of you. That's pretty cool.
Well, I think it was cool. We fought a great fight. It was a closer fight. That he won the fight. Believe me, he won the fight, a close fight. But on some of the scorecards, I'd won by 1-2 rounds or something. But I think if you asked Morales did I win 2 rounds, he'd probably say no. I think he won more than 2 rounds. But we're good friends. They were on Twitter together. I seen him last week, and for him to say that about me, it makes me feel really good. It really does, because I know that I was in with a guy who was 22 years old. He had knocked out 9 guys straight. He was not even in his prime yet. And the guy, believe me, could hit pretty hard. But me being a stubborn Irishman, I took his shots and came back to him. And I pushed him, say for 12 rounds. And, it was a great fight. I think it should have been actually one of the candidates for Fight of the Year.
You win the next few fights, and then you go ahead and fight Prince Nassim Hamed, who you brought up earlier. What do you remember about that fight, or about him in general? What did you think of Prince Nassim?
Well, the truth is, I wanted to fight him from 1997 because he actually fought in Dublin, Ireland, against Manuel Medina, who actually I was talking to last week about it. And Hammett had posters all around Dublin that forget about McCullough, come see the Prince. So I'm thinking he's a featherweight champion, I'm the bantamweight champion, and he's trying to get some PR to my name. So he said something negative in the newspaper in Ireland about my wife, something about she was scared of me fighting him. So I jumped on a plane on my own, arrived at the weigh-ins, and he was shocked. Had his entourage around him. I walked in with my one good friend, and I walked straight over to him and I said to him, "Don't ever disrespect my wife." I said, "You can say whatever you want about me, but never disrespect my wife. I'll knock you the butt out." He was all, his entourage were like jumping around like as if they were going to attack me. You know what? They were all frightened of their life. And then when he fought Medina that night in Dublin, everybody knew I was in the arena, so they started singing my name all through the fight. If you ever get to see that fight, it was actually on Showtime, and they sang my name the whole way through the fight. And I'm sure that pissed him off something really bad. He never went back there in the fight. That was him. And he struggled against Medina that night. He really struggled.
I don't know what to think of Nassim. I mean, back then he was, of course, the big guy coming up, and everybody thought he was going to be the next god of the sport. You kind of in a way stopped him too. A lot of people said when you took him to the limit.
Yeah.
He won just by decision, but you kind of in a way put a stop to him. You kind of maybe opened the doors for Barrera to see, hey, this guy.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, the funny thing is, to this day, I really, I thought I did enough to win the fight, but if you turn the sound down and watch the fight, which is actually on YouTube, you turn the sound down and watch it, I think you'll get a different perspective of the fight, because Hamed had just signed an HBO contract for like millions of dollars, and I knew going into the fight, there's no way I'm going to win unless I knock him out. And he talked about knocking me out, in such and such a certain round, and doing this and doing that. And the media, a lot of the media guys were sort of laughing at it, and I'm thinking, I've never been knocked off my feet as an amateur professional, and why would I even think about getting knocked out again? And Hamed I think he just sort of hypnotized the media, and he abused everybody. He tried to attack my wife, which was the wrong thing to do, because she can open her mouth a lot bigger than he can. And then at the press conference, he kept on. We did our stand and stood beside each other for the photograph, and he started to chirp away at me, and I just said, "You know what, Hamed? What happens if you hit me on the chin and I'm still standing there?" That was the only thing I said to him. And he was convinced he was going to knock me out. But you know what? The first time he hit me, first round, he hit me like a left hook right hand. I put my gloves up as to say, "Okay, you hit me. I'm still here." And for the next 11 rounds, he just ran away for 11 rounds.
No matter what they hit you with, I think they could have got like the post at the end of the street, the light post. You're not going to go down. Or even the ring post. I mean, how was that, or how did you get that? You can't earn that, learn it, buy it. You're just either born with it or you're not.
Well, as an amateur, I get hit pretty hard, as I say. But, Ring Magazine gave me the best kind of boxing, I think, back in 2000. And I was like, what type of award does that mean I get hit? No, but the funny thing is, I did get hit, but if you look at my career, and look at some of the fights, if you watch closely, Eddie Fitch taught me to, like, roll a punch. If a punch comes, like, roll your head under, keep your chin tucked into your chest, just to take the impact off the shot. And I really did. I took a lot of shots, and they weren't full impact shots. And because if I get hit as much as people thought I did back in the day, I wouldn't even have a conversation with you right now. I wouldn't be able to speak. You know what I mean? So Eddie Fudge, taught me how to roll the shots, block certain shots, and if you're going to swim, you're going to go wet. And I did get hit, of course, because I was an aggressive fighter who got hit. So I could take a shot well.
Prince Nassim Hamed, how hard of a puncher was he?
Well, you know what? The guy was, before I fought him, he had knocked out 18 guys straight, so at featherweight. And he fought my buddy Kevin, of course, who had him down, and then he was down. But I don't think he fought the elite competition who actually have a good chin. So he didn't really hit as hard as Morales. Morales hit hard for 12 rounds. Hamed was more of a physically stronger guy, and you could see most of his shots coming because he threw them from the back of the room. He's trying to load up with every shot. It's mostly like body strength and punch power. I know he can hit hard if he knock guys out, but I think he took people on the words with his natural physical strength.
A few fights after that, you fight Eric Morales. How was Eric Morales as a fighter?
The main event that night was actually Hamed against Cesar Soda, which turned out to be a terrible fight, but I say me and Morales fought 12 hard rounds, and I think it took Morales on the words. The day we arrived, I walked over to Miguel Diaz. He's my good friend. He was Morales' cut man, and Morales was right beside him, and I walked over and I said to Miguel, "Oh, how you doing? Good to see you." I looked at Morales and I said hello to him, and he was a bit shocked that like we're supposed to fight each other, and you're saying hello to me, you know. So to fight a guy like Morales to say what he's going to do in his career is just an accomplishment for me, really.
Several fights up, you know, you go ahead and go on a winning streak. You might have lost one on the way there against Scott Harrison, but you fight a guy named Oscar Larios, the Chololo Larios, in 2005. What do you remember about those two fights that you had with them? First fight, what do you remember about him?
Well, you know, the first fight I was actually in Vegas there. You said I just told you for the WBC convention, and I got to meet the referee. He actually did my first fight, and he thought I won the fight. The commentators had me win that night, you know. And then when, as I say, with the politics of boxing, the judges scored cards were read out, and I didn't even, according to the judges, I didn't even turn up, you know, but most people thought I won the fight. Close fight, but, you know, I got the rematch. And Larry used to say he's a good friend, and he was a good champion in his day.
And what did you think of the second fight with them? You lose by TKO in the 10th round. What did you think of the stoppage?
Well, and I think if everybody watches the fight that night, you know, I'm pleading with a doctor, Margaret Goodman, who I know she didn't stop the fight. I found out 6 months later who stopped the fight. And actually in my autobiography that I wrote myself, I blame Margaret Goodman, but I apologized to her afterwards. I told her I put it in my book, and I've since apologized to her. And I found out actually who stopped the fight for no reason, because they didn't spend time in training camp with me, or, you know, study the first tape. And, you know, if anybody sees William McCullough fight, when I fought Jose Luis Bueno, Victor Rabanales, you know, I get hit, you know, but I didn't have a mark on my face after that fight. And his corner even told him after the 10th round, just back off. So they knew they weren't going to knock me out, but for somebody else to take control of your career and do that to you is just shameful.
And what did you think of Richard Steele as a referee that day?
The funny thing with Richard, we're good friends. Me and Richard, I was standing beside him at the fight the other night when my good friend Laura Serrano was fighting. And, you know, Richard's a good guy. I've played golf with him in Vegas, you know. And during the fight, he said, "You're getting hit. And this is why we're fighting." And I'm looking around and said, "Richard, I'm okay. I'm fine. Never don't worry about it." You know. So I know Richard and Dr. Goodman weren't going to behind the stuff, but they know my style of fighting. If you know a fighter's style of fighting, you know, you let him go on. Cause look at the likes of Turagati and Mickey Ward. They killed each other for 3 fights, more than, well, the first 2 anyway. You know, if you look at my fight with Larius, I didn't take not even quarter of much they took. I took more in the Jose Luis Bueno fight than the Rabanales fight. I say, when it's took out of your own hands and you don't find out who did it for 6 months, then it even sinks in deeper, sinks in even more, it hurts more.
In that particular fight with the second one with Larios, that was the only stoppage that you ever got. I mean, you had such a grand chin that you were never stopped before or after that. And even now, I bet you if you get in the ring, I bet you nobody could probably knock you out because you had that chin.
I understand it, and the way I look at it is, I haven't been stopped at the hands of a fighter. You know, when somebody else takes it out of your hands and does the stuff, I'm the type of guy, just like you're talking about. I'd rather be on my back and stopped by the fighter than somebody else to take it out of your hands and do that for you. Because, you know, if we're standing toe to toe and he hits me a good shot and I go over my legs wobble, my eyes clear, then it's fine. Then stop the fight. But Margaret Goodman actually had a look at my eyes and she said they were clear. So why would you stop a fight? Because somebody else took control of it, that's why. And if he ever says something in the corner, then it's already done. There's nothing you can do. You know what I mean? So I didn't know that, as I said, for 6 months later. But as I say, Larius knew he was never going to stop me with what he was hitting me with. And unfortunately, it ended up the way it did.
And how'd you get the nickname the Pocket Rocket? How'd you get that name?
I got that name back in 1988 at the Olympics. One of my teammates was a guy called Kieran Joyce. And back then, I was only like 5'3" or something, weighing 105 pounds. And he said, I could fit in your pocket and I throw punches like a rocket. So that's when the Pocket Rocket was born 23 years ago.
And if somebody didn't know who you are, or that didn't know, you know, what your credentials are in boxing, and they asked you what were your biggest strengths as a boxer, what would you say those were?
I think my biggest strength is probably, you know, my chin, of course. But my heart, you know, I get hit hard. Believe me, I get hit hard. Morales hit me 1-2 uppercut in the second round of our fight. And as I say, he knocked out 9 guys straight. Almeida knocked out 18 guys straight. And when they hit people, they were used to seeing people fall over. But when they hit me and I'm still marching forward, that's got to take a guy's soul away from him, you know what I mean? And I think that was my strength. My strength was my heart. I think just determination and heart. And
would you be able to say that you reached your goals in boxing in your career?
Well, as I say, I always wanted to be a world champion, and then when I became champ, I wanted to be a three-time champ. I believe, with the Zaragoza fight and even Hamed and the first Larius fight that I should have been. But I'm not gonna cry over it. I got a world championship belt. 90% of fighters don't achieve that goal, and especially the WBC belt, which is to me the most prestigious belt out there.
And what do you think of the WBC now?
It's changed a lot. I think they're trying to do good things. Last week at the convention, they're going to start a World Cup of boxing, and they're going to get. Hopefully, they'll do it within next year. Of promoters putting money into a pension scheme for former world champion boxers, retired boxers, but the world champions. And I think if they do something like that, it'll help a lot of fighters out. So I think it'll be. I think as I say, back in the day, you had to fight your way to the top. Nowadays, guys, you look at the guys getting a crack at the belt without even fighting anybody in the top 20.
Probably a question that everybody asks you in the world. You fought Rabinales, you fought Morales, you fought Nasim Hamed, you fought Larios, you fought, so on and so forth. Who was your toughest opponent of them all?
Well, a lot of people will say, it was Hamed and Morales, but the truth is, I think Victor Rabinales, about how many fights he had, he was a former champ, #1 in the world. He was probably my hardest fight because I was inexperienced, and I was going through different stages of my defensive training, and it wasn't working for me. Some of the defensive moves I was trying, I was getting hit, and I think I say the only guy that had me out on my feet, it was probably my toughest fight because I could hit shots in that fight that I've never been hit before. He was probably my toughest, and Morales is definitely the hardest hitter for 12 rounds out of all the guys.
After all the years of sparring and training, all that, some of them have had injuries that last them forever, whether it be mental injuries, physical injuries, whatnot. Have you ever felt anything like that now that you're retired and all your career is said and done with? Do you ever feel any headaches or memory loss or anything like that from all the boxing that you've done throughout your years?
No, I really don't, because as I say, I had a lot of amateur fights. Only had 34 pro fights, which is not that many. And I didn't really believe in too much sparring. I believe coming to a fight, you may get some rounds in, but in between fights, unless somebody told me to help them out, I wouldn't spar. You know what I mean? And I think sparring with a lot of these old fighters, they do too much sparring, and that's why they are the way they are. I've seen it with my own eyes over the convention last week. A lot of fighters who you can see they're punch drunk. But fortunately with me, I've always took the right medication during or before the fight and after the fight. I've took certain medication that actually helps for brain trauma, and it works. I think I'm an example that it does work. And a guy that everybody said I took a lot of shots, well, I can still actually put a sentence together sometimes. So I think if you get the right medication, you can actually keep your mind from losing any memory at all.
What medication did you take, or what was it something that you would recommend to any fellow fighter?
It's a big secret. No, I'm only kidding. No, the Arnica, the homeopathic medicine, the little Arnica pills you take for brain trauma. And before, a few days before the fight, I would take these pills 3 or 4 times a day, and then as soon as the fight was over, like a lot of fights, you feel like you've got hit by a truck. You know what I mean? Around your swelling around your eyes, around your head is swell. And I took these pills. They actually help the healing process, but they also help your brain from any trauma or anything like that. It goes in and works inside your head too. And the homeopathic doctor told me to do this, and I didn't believe him at the start, but you know what? I believe him now. I really do, because it worked for my health. You know what I mean? I'm around to talk without slurring my words or anything like that, which is a good thing.
And is there anything in your career that you would change, or that if you were able to change, like maybe fight somebody that you didn't fight, or you should have took back a fight that you shouldn't have fought? Is there anything you would change like that?
Maybe change some of the judges. No, I think my dream fight when I was a kid, a guy that I loved, that I looked up to, was Orlando Canizales. And when I came to America, he was at the end of his career, and I just loved the way he fought. I would love to share the ring with him, but I wouldn't change anything. There's certain things that happen. Things happen. They're supposed to happen like that. I've got good faith in God, and if things are meant to happen the way they're supposed to, then and boxing, I remember for the guy who's always been a loyal guy. He's honest, and I'd rather be known like that than being a complete jerk.
How do you want to be remembered to the three big F's? Your fans, your family, your friends. How do you want to be remembered to them?
Well, my family, friends, and fans, I'd rather be known for the guy who, no matter what, win or lose, gave 100%. You know, he was a fan friendly fighter. You know, every time I fought, I never heard any boos. So I'd rather be known for that. And I think I don't think I know the fans remember me like that. They say last week they're all coming over to me and saying you're the best Irish fighter ever, and you give everything, 100% every time you fought. And that's where I want to be. I want to be remembered like that. The guy who ducked nobody. I fought everybody. You know, in the bantamweight division or the featherweight division. I fought, Morales and Hamed were both in the top 10 pound for pound. And when I fought Yakashiji for the bantamweight belt, he was actually number one amongst the four world champions. So I fought the best to get the belt, and I fought the best to try to get my other belts. So that's what I want to remember like from the fans. And saying they do remember like that. To this day, they remember like that.
And every night that I remember seeing you, I see you against some of the toughest fights with whether it been with Larios, whether it been with Rapinales, whether it been with Morales, whether it been with Nasim Hamed. Every night I knew I got the best, or I watched the best Wayne McCullough that night. The best of you, all of it. You left what you had that night. You left it there in the ring, and I think that's why people will always respect you, and why you are the Irish fighter that you are, and why you represented Irish fighters in general.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's when I came out after the Hamed fight, I came out and I said, I said in an interview afterwards for TV back home, and I said, what, I did everything I could do. I chased the guy, I ran after him. I even had blisters on my toes. Really did have blisters on my toes running after him. I said, how can you win a fight if you run away? I give everything I had, and I want the fans back home to know that.
And for future fighters coming up, you being a veteran in boxing, what would you tell a kid coming up in their career, or a young kid coming up trying to become a boxer himself? What would be your message to them?
To always train hard. You gotta be disciplined. It's like almost being the army. Being in the army, which is tougher than boxing. I take my hats off to the army guys, the military. But it's like you have your disciplines you. Makes you a better person. And if you want to become a world champion, if you train hard, the fight's easy. If you don't train hard, you're going to have a tough fight. You know what I mean? So if you've got goals in life to become a world champion as a young kid who's starting off, or who's in the game right now, just as long as you train hard, everything give 100%, enjoy it. That's the main thing.
And I think the biggest title that you got that you're winning right now is Winona and everything she's doing. Yep. And I've seen your Facebook, and I have you on my Facebook page, and I've been seeing everything, and you seem to be so proud of her. And I know that's your next title. That's your biggest title there, in my opinion, because you seem so proud of her.
Yeah, Winona is the type of kid she's disciplined. She loves to play guitar, play piano. She loves to dance. She loves to sing, and she has no nerves at all when it comes to the time to sing. She just gets up there and sings away.
She's not afraid of the camera either.
No, she loves the camera. I call her a poser. She's like a poser. She's a great kid, but she's got a lot of respect for people. She's met world champions right through her whole career since she was a baby. You know what I mean? So she's a great kid, and people should go out and listen to her voice, because I'm not just saying it because I'm her dad, but she can sing. She got soul in her voice. Like the band U2, like Bono. She's got soul in her voice, and she can even rap as well.
Is there like a website that I could maybe link on my page so people can click on it?
Well, mine's is Pocket Rocket Box, and then I Wayne McCullough on Twitter. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/official Pocket Rocket. My daughter's at the WYMAC, WYMAC. That's her nickname, Winona McCullough, WYMAC.
Was she named after you because Wayne and Winona?
Yeah, Winona was like the closest we could get to calling the girl Wayne. So.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for doing this. Thank you very much for being here on theboxingbar.com. And God bless you, and thank you for all your career. Thank you for all the good times, and God bless you.
I thank you as well. I want to thank all my fans, and even some of my journalist fans and friends who've been helping me through my career. And, you'll see me in the ring one way or the other.